I used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this, so I had to grind like that to shine like this. No, I'm just playing. Well, we're back. Welcome back to the Anomaly Podcast, episode 46, I believe, as we're approaching the Big 50. But whether you're the top of the top in the NBA or the underdog story, all championship teams need some luck along the way. And throughout the playoffs, a big factor that could make or break your season is a good or bad matchup. Today we're going to give a dream and nightmare scenario matchup for every team in the NBA, in the Eastern Western Conference that have a chance at the playoffs. And, of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Bakari Steve. How you feeling on this Tuesday morning? As we only have 8 or so games left of the regular season.
Yeah, I feel great. The predicting these dreams and nightmares kind of matchups was fun, so I'm ready to get into it.
Oh, absolutely. This is your early reminder that if you do enjoy what you're seeing / hearing, aside from the corny intro, support us down below. Drop a like, drop a comment. We love interacting with you guys, and subscribe to the channel. I do also want to say that we are now on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, so go ahead and I'm going to drop the link in the bio. So go ahead and follow us over there, support us over there as well. If you guys do enjoy what you're seeing / hearing, we do have some special TikTok content on the way. I will say that. Yep. But without further ado, I'm your host, Owen Stiftar. Let's get into some news first, and then we're going to get to these dreams and nightmares. Shout out Meek Millie. But we're going to start here with Julius Randle in the Garden. Dropped 57 points in a loss yesterday to, I believe, the Timberwolves. And didn't he have 52 at halftime?
Going into the third quarter.
Going into the third quarter. Ended with 57. I have some stats here. He was 8 of 14 from the three-point line. He shot 65% from the field. And it's the second most points in a game in Knicks history, of course, behind the greatest player of all time, Carmelo Anthony. But, great performance from Julius Randle.
Yeah, I know you're sweating bullets as when you saw that 52 going into the third, but it's kind of crazy that they lost that game, especially when it's the Timberwolves, who are also trying to secure at least a play-in spot themselves. So, and they didn't even have Anthony Edwards, so. Shout out Taurean Prince and them boys for going in Madison Square Garden and keeping the Knicks off the Cavs trail for the 4th seed.
Taurean Prince, man. What is it, 8 of 8 from the three-point line?
Shot 92% from the field.
35 points. That's not even, that's a moments card coming up for sure in 2K. Galaxy Opal. But we're moving over here to the Minnesota Timberwolves as it's the Minnesota Medical. Ant, as we just talked about, I believe last Friday in a game against the Bulls, he hurt his foot, and he was screaming in pain. I don't know if you guys have seen the video, but you could definitely tell he's hurt. They're expecting a high ankle sprain for Anthony Edwards, and, I guess the Timberwolves season kind of depends on what the verdict is for this injury. But as what we know right now is he's expected to miss an extended amount of time. Also, we know Karl Anthony Towns, their other star player, he suffered a major setback in his recovery from his calf injury in late January, so that's why he's been out for pretty much the whole season. Just some quick stats here. Ever since Ant got hurt last Friday, the Timberwolves are 1-1, and for this season alone, they're 25-26 without Karl Anthony Towns. Do you think if, let's say he does have a high ankle sprain, or let's hope for the best, let's say he has a low ankle sprain and he's out a week or two, do you think this Timberwolves team still has a chance at the playoffs?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think on it was Sunday the Sunday after he heard it or whatever, I think they said, because he was in a walking boot originally, and I know they were like, oh, he's out of the walking boot and he feels fine. I know they were taking it day to day, and I'm sure, as long as they're locked in to have a play-in spot, they're going to, kind of manage how much they don't let him play or how much they do let him play. But, I think that when you're looking at Ant and Cat, who you will want to come back, you obviously want Anthony Edwards. We saw what the Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns experiment looked like at the beginning of the season. I know they didn't have a good handful of games, but you could just tell that it was awkward and that, it didn't really bring any major benefits to that team. So they're definitely going to want Ant back, especially to finish out the season, hopefully get home court advantage in the play-in, and only have one play-in game potentially. So, I'm rooting for the Timberwolves, actually.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, no matter what happens to them this season, if Ant's out for the year and they kind of just shut him down and shut the rest of the team down, really, regardless of what happens with this team for the rest of the season, I think they're going to be a team to watch out for in the offseason. Whether if they want to trade Cat or do this or that, it's going to be interesting to see, as I do think they're going to fully commit to Anthony Edwards as their main guy. But returning stars, we have Kevin Durant with his ankle injury and LeBron with his foot injury. They're both, at what we know right now, they're both set to return for the playoffs. I guess my question here is, which star is going to have a bigger impact? When they return, I guess it depends on when they return. I guess Kevin Durant is expected to return before LeBron James, but we never know with LeBron.
Yeah, I think I'll have to go Kevin Durant for what you just said. Kevin Durant is assured he's going to be back before the playoffs, and he will play in the playoffs. He will definitely, the reason they went out and to go get him was because, having Kevin Durant on your team means you're an automatic contender. The Suns have been there before, and they feel like Kevin Durant is the person to get them over the hump. And so I believe that too. And when it comes to LeBron, yeah, he would really help the Lakers, especially now. But the Lakers are kind of in a spot now. It's like if they lose one or two more games, there is no reason for LeBron to come back, because then they won't even have a play-in spot. So Kevin Durant, he will be back. LeBron, it's more so it depends on the Lakers' success without him, at least for these next few games, or he's still being evaluated and ramping up recovery. And that's why I'm going to pick Kevin Durant for this.
I would actually probably go LeBron, just because the Suns are in the playoffs, and we know Kevin Durant will be back playoff time. At least both of these guys, we think so. I might go LeBron just because he can help them. He can help the Lakers get to the playoffs, because the Suns are already solidified, at least not yet clinched, but they're in the playoffs. And LeBron can help this Lakers team get to the playoffs, right? But regardless, these are two of the top 5 best players in the world, or pretty close to it. And we are excited to have them back as soon as they're ready. But for the main portion of today's show, like I said, we're going to go through the dream and nightmare scenarios for the top 10 seeds in the Eastern and Western Conference. We did make one exception here in the West, where we had the Utah Jazz. As of last night, they won their game against the Kings, which they almost blew it. They were up by like 20 or so at some point, and the Kings made a comeback. But the Utah Jazz, they finished the game out, and they're the number 10 seed now. They took over the Lakers. However, we made an exception because we both believe the Lakers will make the play-in over the Jazz, and that's why we made a substitution there. Regardless, it doesn't matter when we're talking about those lower seeds. We're going to start here with the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets I have for my dream scenario is the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves, I believe the Nuggets, we know how banged up the Timberwolves are with Cat and Ant, and especially, their future in doubt. Even if they had Anthony Edwards, I think the dream scenario would be the Nuggets, or would be the Timberwolves for the Nuggets, because the Nuggets, they're an amazing offense. They're the number 1 seed for a reason, and when you get to play a beat-up team like that, that's what you're hoping for.
Yeah. My dream for them is actually the OKC Thunder. Listen, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's a wonderful, wonderful player. He's making a case to be a top 15, top 10 kind of guy based off this season alone. And if he can continue that, the Oklahoma future is great. But they don't have the pieces around him that would make them a really a legit threat in the playoffs. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They have Josh Giddey, who he kind of flies under the radar. They don't even have their top pick this year in Chet Holmgren, who you would probably put on Jokic at least for some type of paint protection. So, they have a decent team, but, this would really be an easy first-round cakewalk for the Thunder, or for the Nuggets, if they were able to match up against the Thunder, probably in a sweep.
Right, and I believe J-Dub's he's a great young player for this Thunder team. He's probably second in the Rookie of the Year race. But he's just, he doesn't have the height. He doesn't have the, right. He is bigger, but he's not a matchup for Jokic, right? Jokic is licking his fingers. Yeah. But then my nightmare scenario for this Nuggets team is if the Lakers could pull it together and be the 8th seed. I think if this Lakers team, we know 2 years ago in the Western Conference Finals, or 3 years ago at this point, in the bubble, the Lakers were able to handle this Nuggets team pretty easily. I think it was 4-1. That's what the Lakers were doing that year. They were just beating everybody in 5 or 6. But 4-1 for that Lakers team. Anthony Davis, the way he's been playing as of late and the way he started the season, when he's playing that good, he's at a top 5 level in the league. And that's scary when AD's playing at that level. This Lakers team, it has a bunch of great pieces that you want. This is probably the best constructed Lakers team since that championship run. When you have D'Lo, you have a guy like Jared Vanderbilt who could put everything together. You have your stars in LeBron and AD. They're going to be a nightmare for the Nuggets in the first round.
Yeah, and my nightmare for the Nuggets is actually Golden State. I could have went with the Lakers here just like you, but I actually picked Golden State just because, I don't know how many times we've said it on the show, but they've been there and done that. Their core has done it 4 times. I believe there's no doubt in my mind that they'll definitely turn it up come the playoffs and, really look into form. I know they've been, slipping a few here and there, losses.
Especially on the road.
Yeah, I think they're on, like a 12-game losing streak on a road,
yep.
Or 11 games, something like that. But when the playoffs come, it's just different. And, we're yet to see how the Nuggets will perform in the playoffs with their offense because, they're actually, they run a little bit of up and down when Jokic isn't in the game. So we'll have to see when the game slows down and it's half-court offense versus half-court defense. Yes, the Nuggets are good, but the Warriors know how to play at a championship-winning level. And when you have Steph and Klay and Draymond, who will definitely be on a mission to prove, hey, we slipped during the regular season, but we can do it right back in the playoffs, they'll be dangerous. So it'll be tough for the Nuggets to bounce the former champs in the first round.
Yeah, both of those teams are teams that have beat the Nuggets.
Yeah.
The cores of the Warriors and the Lakers, they've beat this Nuggets core a couple times in the playoffs now.
Yeah.
So, the Nuggets, sure, they're a great team, but are they going to be another team like last year where they're higher seed, but they just fall short in the playoffs? Last year they were 6th seed, but you guys get what I'm saying. When they have their core 2 years ago, they fell short to what they were expecting to do. But moving over to the Grizzlies, they moved up to the 2 seed last night with the Kings' loss. My dream scenario, for every reason that I said last time, is the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're beat up. Ja Morant, you don't want to face a team that can extend a series. And the Timberwolves, I believe, if they match up with the Grizzlies, they're not going to do that. It's going to be a sweep. The Grizzlies can play 4 games and get ready for the next round, as playoffs can be grueling.
Yeah, and I have the Thunder again as a dream matchup. That's going to be the theme before these higher teams. But, once again, it's just the Thunder don't have what it takes this year. I think they're more so a happy to be there type of team. It's just one of those teams like last year the Cavs were. They surprised a lot of people, but they just didn't have the material yet to be a playoff threat or even a play-in threat. And so that's where I think that the Thunder are. They have a lot of success to build off of this year, especially with a lot of draft picks over the next few years. But they just aren't ready to take down these Nuggets or Grizzlies teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, and my nightmare is the Warriors. You mentioned it a lot in the for the Nuggets, but the Warriors, they've been there, done that. It might be the last dance between Curry, Klay, and Dre. This team, like you said, they've been slipping in the regular season. I believe the Warriors have lost 12 straight road games, and the Grizzlies are a great home team, but the Warriors are the Warriors. They've been there, they've done that. They can turn it up. They can flip that switch, and the Grizzlies and the Warriors, they hate each other, as we're going to see for my nightmare for the Warriors. But this is they hate each other. It's a great rivalry, and sure, for a team like the Grizzlies, you don't want to face a team again for these higher seeds that can extend series. The Warriors are going to do just that.
Yeah, and my nightmare, it would be sort of a stretch if this happens because I think the Clippers actually they moved up last night because they were the 6th seed, but. It would be a stretch if this happened, but if the Clippers fell to the 7th seed, that would be an absolute nightmare for the Grizzlies. They would probably, they'd probably lose in 4 or 5. I think. I don't think Ja will be ready for the playoffs this year. I mean, he'll play in the playoffs, but he missed so much time, and with all the off-court drama going on with him, I don't think he'll be mentally ready or physically ready to go into a grueling playoff series this year. The Grizzlies, they've been hurting a little bit with the Steven Adams and the injuries that they've been going through, Brandon Clark, whereas the Clippers, they made a lot of really good small pickups at the trade deadline and the buyout market. I think that'll help a lot. The Clippers are definitely going to be a feared team this playoffs, and that would be the worst case scenario for the Grizzlies this year.
Absolutely. As we move over to the Sacramento Kings, my dream matchup, as you've mentioned, with the Thunder and for the Grizzlies and the Nuggets, they're just a young team. They're not there yet. Shea's an amazing player. He might grab one off the Kings because the Kings are a very high-powered offense. They can have an off night. But this Kings offense is the best offense in NBA history, according to statistics right now.
Yeah.
But the Thunder, they're a young team. The Kings should be able to handle the business early on in this series.
Yeah, like you said, I like Sacramento a lot. I look at it and I'm like, I actually trust Sacramento over Denver, which is weird, but that's just because, they've done this consistent offense. They've had this offense for years, but it's just finally fit to see in form. So, for that reason, I have their dream being Minnesota. Minnesota right now, they're 8, but if they can somehow get to 6, which they're only a game behind Golden State for that 6th spot, that would be the best scenario for the Sacramento Kings, because we know once it comes playoff time, Rudy Gobert is absolute barbecue chicken. He does not stand a chance guarding perimeter players like Malik Monk or De'Aaron Fox, and he can't really guard. He can guard smaller bigs, but once they step outside the paint, that's where it becomes a problem.
He gets
for
played
him.
off the court.
Yeah, and they run in transition. They love the transition basketball, and it won't even look like a playoff series if they play the Timberwolves. It'll look like a regular season game. How much up and down they'll be doing on the Timberwolves.
Well, absolutely, especially if the Ant is out as well as Cat.
Yeah.
But for the Warriors, we both have the Warriors here for their nightmare matchup against the Kings. The Warriors, we've talked about it. They've been there, done that. They're veteran core. They can flip the switch. And for a team that doesn't have much playoff experience in this Kings team, you don't want to face a team like the Warriors that are on the quest for their last dance, I guess, their 5th ring.
Yeah, and like you said, we both picked the Warriors. All those reasons that you just mentioned are the same reasons I have, and also the Warriors. They were, pretty much the founders of that really good 5-out basketball that they started in like 2015, and it's been a killer in the playoffs ever since. This year, they'll presumably put Draymond at the 5 or start with Looney for like 2 minutes and don't play him the rest of the game. But when they run that 5 out, they are really dangerous. Draymond will be able to take care of Sabonis, I believe, and then it relies on the rest of the team to hit their shots and to play enough perimeter defense to run off Sacramento, and I believe that they can do that.
The Phoenix Suns, I have their dream matchup as the Dallas Mavericks. We know that the history that these two teams have had. The last time these guys met in the playoffs, Luka and the Mavericks won by 60 in Phoenix, and Luka went on to the Western Conference Finals. But this Mavericks team, I was going to have them as a nightmare because Luka he hates the Clippers and he hates the Suns. And he always goes crazy in the playoffs. I think Luka has the 2nd most points per game in playoff history as of right now. But besides Kyrie, besides Luka Doncic, the rest of the depth on that Mavericks team is not built for a 7-game series against a team like the Suns. They don't have anybody to guard Kevin Durant, let alone Devin Booker. And then you add pieces like DeAndre Ayton, you add Chris Paul. This Suns team is a title favorite for a reason. The Mavericks don't have enough to match up with the Suns.
Yeah, and like you just said, we both have the same 2 teams here, but I like everything you just said. I agree with, before the Kyrie trade, Dallas wouldn't have had a chance against Phoenix. After the Kyrie trade, they don't have a chance against Phoenix. Like you said, they just don't have the defense to stop Phoenix's best players, and it just so happens Phoenix has 2 of the top scorers in today's game. And when it comes to shot creating, Devin Booker is arguably top 5. Kevin Durant is arguably top 3. Their skill set is elite. Kevin Durant, he's a 2-time Finals MVP. He has the rings. He has the knowledge of how to get to the finals. And when you're playing with vets like Chris Paul, it really helps out. And I just don't think that Dallas would be able to. Or I think that's what will happen.
To be honest, I mean, I'll say this: I'm a big Luka fan, right? I love Luka. I'm one of the biggest Luka stans you'll find, right? I do believe he's top 5 in the league, and some people have him outside of the top 5. I think that's outrageous. But I'm a big Luka fan. I'm a big Kyrie fan. I just don't think that they could even steal one in a series like this. Luka's Luka, and Luka averages, I think, 35 to 37 points a game in the playoffs in his first career, which he's only 2nd behind Mike. But Luka is, I think it'll be a series like last year with the Celtics and the Nets.
That's exactly what I was
going
to say.
Where we think that, it could be an intense 4 games, but when you have a team like the Suns where Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are leading their charge, they're going to be able to take care of it and close the games out. And it might remind you a lot of like the 2018 finals, where the Cavs were, or 2017, one of those years where we were just close. All those games, Kevin Durant just pulled away at the end.
Yeah, 2017, yep.
And then my nightmare matchup is the Clippers. Just because they have Kawhi Leonard, they have Paul George, they are the only team in the league that has 2 people that you could say, okay, we could put on Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. They're the only team in the league that can say that, where we have 2 guys that we trust to get it done on the offensive end while guarding the other team's best 2 players. And, Kawhi Leonard, though nobody can stop Kevin Durant in the history of mankind. Maybe besides Victor. We'll have to see if Victor Wembanyama can match up against Kevin Durant. But nobody has ever been able to shut down Kevin Durant. Kawhi Leonard's going to do the best job at it. And then you throw Paul George, one of the most underrated defenders, one of the most underrated players offensively and defensively, on Devin Booker. This team's going to be able to at least push the Suns team to 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, and when you think about it, I have the same, everything you just said I agree with, because I do have the Clippers as a nightmare matchup as well. When you think about it, before this Phoenix Suns team got Kevin Durant, Paul George almost beat this Clippers team. If he makes both of his free throws in game 1, they win that game. It's a 7-game series, which would have been in Phoenix, but maybe Chris Paul doesn't drop a career high. It felt like in the playoffs, and we could easily be talking about how the Clippers made the finals that year without their best player in Paul George and their second best player being Reggie Jackson. So when you say this year,
okay. I thought you were saying without their best player in Kawhi Leonard, but you were saying Paul George was their best player.
No, I'm saying
regardless.
No, yeah. Well, they didn't have Kawhi Leonard that series, and they were still able to do all of that. So when you put in, they have Kawhi Leonard now. They have better bench pieces. They have better assets. I believe Zubac is actually more consistent than DeAndre Ayton, because DeAndre Ayton can go and get you 30 and 18 one game, and he will get you 4 and 5 the next 5 games. But like you said, they have the elite perimeter defense to guard Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And at that case, you're like, okay, you're daring Chris Paul to go get you 30, 25 points. I don't think he can do that, for 4, 5, 6, 7 games, however many he needs to do that. So that would be an absolute nightmare matchup for the Phoenix Suns.
Moving over to the Clippers, as we just talked a lot about them, as you see, 2 top 15 players in the world. At one point, Kawhi Leonard was arguably the best player in the world. I wouldn't have said that, but he was definitely top 2 or top 3 for sure.
Paul George was an MVP candidate at one
point. At one point. And my dream matchup is the Dallas Mavericks. I mentioned it for the Suns. The Mavericks, great team. They have Luka. Luka hates the Clippers. I was going to have this as a nightmare matchup, but they just don't have enough. They don't have enough, and unlike past years, Kawhi Leonard's he's rested a lot more this year than any other year. It feels like, and Kawhi Leonard, I think, is ready to go. Kawhi Leonard is ready to go, and I think people are going to quickly realize that Kawhi Leonard is still that top 5 player or top 5 talent in the world. And though Luka's great, I think Luka can maybe grab a game or two, but it's the Clippers. The Clippers are too deep for the Mavericks, and they have. They're a title favorite for a reason for us.
Yeah, and I actually have the Memphis Grizzlies being their dream matchup. This would probably have to happen if Memphis and the Clippers fell down one in the rankings to be the 3-6 matchup, or if the Grizzlies somehow fell all the way down to 4th, which I don't see happening. But if it did, that's what the matchup would be. And like I said earlier, for the Grizzlies, the Clippers, they, like you said, the Grizzlies don't want to play anybody that's going to extend the series. That's exactly what the Clippers are going to do. We saw them, 2 years ago? Dallas beat them Dallas beat them both times at home. Am I right? And then Clippers won on the road, beat them twice, and it was kind of an awkward series. It was like the road team was winning, but we saw this Clippers team get it done when it mattered, and I believe that they're unfazed by the home court advantage or anything that they would have to go through, because they play in the Lakers' shadow. They play in the same arena as the Lakers. They're used to it, so it won't faze them. And when you have an elite defender and offensive player in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George with the assets they have, they would love to play the Grizzlies.
Oh, absolutely. And then this is going to be a short explanation for me if I can get it out. But the Phoenix Suns are going to be the nightmare matchup, for this Clippers team. There's a lot of teams that, like the Warriors, could be a nightmare matchup. You can have the Grizzlies, a couple other teams, right? But the Suns are here because they have Devin Booker, they have Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton. They have probably the most talented most talented dynamic duo, maybe. We'll say that. But I don't know. The Suns team can be very dangerous. We haven't really seen a big sample size of all of them on the court at the same time. But in the playoffs, when you have Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, it's going to be a handful, and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are going to have to play like Superman. They're going to have to play great offensively and defensively for a whole 7-game series, and that could just be wearing.
Yeah, and I agree with you, everything you just said. The Phoenix Suns are definitely a nightmare matchup. Just like it was for Phoenix, the Clippers were their nightmare matchup as well. It'd be a nightmare matchup for the NBA fans too. You don't want to see either one of these teams being bounced in the first round, but it just has to happen. So
yeah, I mean, especially with sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. And as we mentioned in the intro, championship teams need some luck. They need to run into the best path possible to be the healthiest as possible to win a championship. And sometimes, like the Phoenix Suns and the Clippers, if they meet first round, that could change their entire playoff run.
Yeah.
But the Golden State Warriors, we've mentioned them a couple times on this podcast. 4-time champion core here that you see on your not that you see on your screen, but Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. We know how great they are. Probably the most accomplished trio of all time. Unless we're talking about Sam Jones and Bill Russell and them boys back in the day. But the Warriors, I think their dream scenario is the Memphis Grizzlies. They hate the Grizzlies, but Draymond Green and Klay, they want to play that Grizzlies team first round. And, what better way to prove to the world that we're still here, we're still the Warriors, than to kick off beating the Grizzlies in the first round.
Yeah, and I have the Nuggets as their nightmare, or as their dream matchup. We have our matchups flipped. But I have the Nuggets as the dream because, like I've been saying, for a while it feels like I just don't know how the Nuggets will be in the playoffs because we've seen the Nuggets in the playoffs before, lose series like this to these, teams that, they could potentially be going up against. And yeah, the teams are lower in the standings and might not have anything going with them, but it's not like we've seen the Nuggets make a magical run to the finals. I believe that when the game is slowed down, Golden State they have the best shooter alive in Stephen Curry. So I believe that, Golden State, I think they'll be able to get the job done versus the Nuggets. And I'll leave that there.
My nightmare matchup is the Nuggets. You just talked about them as a dream matchup. The only reason I have them as a nightmare matchup is because the Warriors do lack size. Has that stopped them from winning 4 championships in the past? No, right? And decide I don't want to hear about Zaza Pachulia or JaVale McGee or Mo Spates. They never had like a true big that they won a championship with. Kevon Looney, great player, but he's just a role player, right? He's not like that dominant big that can.
Andrew Wiggins was tearing the boards up last year.
Absolutely.
That's what tells you.
Absolutely. But I have the Nuggets because they, besides Kevon Looney, who's the second big on that team? We don't know if Kuminga's going to be back for the playoffs. And even then, Kuminga's a bit small to guard the possible third straight MVP in Nikola Jokic. This Nuggets team, they're back. Michael Porter's taken a step, at least with his production, compared to past years. Jamal Murray's getting his feet back from under him. This Nuggets team can be dangerous. They're the 1 seed for a reason. The Warriors don't want to play a guy like Jokic first round because even if the Warriors win, that's going to be a tough 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, and I have the Grizzlies as my nightmare. Like you said, for your dream, the Grizzlies hate the Warriors. I think
that could be a WWE Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and I think that could backfire for the Warriors. They talk a lot, and deservedly so. But the last thing they will want to do is face a young and hungry Grizzlies team. No matter what the Grizzlies have been going through on the court, off the court, if they have to play the Warriors first round, they will absolutely lock in. We've seen them lose. I think they've lost the season series to the Grizzlies this year, which is always a little bit concerning heading into the playoffs, especially versus a conference opponent. But when you factor in that, the Grizzlies lost to the Warriors last year in the playoffs, and, you can say, oh, Ja was hurt. The Warriors are going to win that anyway, I believe. But this year it could be different, And the Grizzlies have some injuries, but the Warriors have been slipping especially in their away games. So I think that that's the last thing that the Warriors really want to have to face in the first round at least.
The Dallas Mavericks, rather. I was going to say the Denver Mavericks. But the Dallas Mavericks, they're 36-36. They went down 1 spot. They're officially in the play-in now as the 7th seed. And if they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to play one of those top 3 seeds. And basically my reasoning here is I have the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings, I've talked about them, statistically speaking, the best offense of all time as we speak. And they should probably keep that mark throughout the season unless they start sitting their players, right? But the Kings, the only argument I have here is if I'm the Mavericks, I would rather play the Kings over a bit of a more experienced Nuggets team that could have the MVP on their team as well as a great core. And, a team like the Memphis Grizzlies who's young, hungry, they're going to beat you up. I just figured you want to play a team like the Kings who don't have as much playoff experience. Luka and Kyrie do have that experience. Kyrie's a champion, and they can. I think if the Kings can't keep that offensive pace up, and we know with explosive offenses like that, they can have off nights, off series. The Mavericks can take advantage.
Yeah, and I have the Memphis Grizzlies as their dream matchup. I have it because when I thought about it, even though the Dallas Mavericks had a bit of a different team last year with Dinwiddie and Brunson off the bench and Dorian Finney-Smith, they were able to completely dismantle, really, the Utah Jazz, who were, a top seed in the West last year. And, the Jazz were always a really, really solid regular season team. They were able to just completely take them apart. I believe that they could absolutely do that to a Grizzlies team this year, especially when you have a better player than Dinwiddie and Brunson combined in Kyrie Irving. Kyrie is a champion. Kyrie has made deep playoff runs. Luka, like you said, he's number 2 all time in playoff scoring. I believe that all they need is their role players to step up a bit defensively, and you also need your guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Josh Green to make their shots when they're open. If you can do that, I believe that their team is more consistent than that of like a Dillon Brooks or anybody really that the Memphis Grizzlies have outside of their star players and like Ja Morant.
I guess my only argument there was like for a team like the Grizzlies compared to the Kings is, well, last year we know that Luka and Kyrie, what they do a lot is they'll do these, I guess, pick and rolls, quote unquote, to get a favorable matchup, right? To face, to have a big on Luka or whatever, because that's what the Mavericks did a lot last year. They had Luka take a pick and roll, and he's boom. DeAndre Ayton is his matchup now, and Luka's gonna win that 9 times out of 10. I think they can do that against the Kings. I think they can do that against Rashawn Holmes and Chimezie Metus and Domantas Sabonis of the world, compared to like the Grizzlies where they have Jaren Jackson and Desmond Bane and a lot more defense over there. But my nightmare matchup is the Suns. We talked about it earlier. I don't have to explain why. The Suns are the Suns, and they're going to kill this Mavericks team because, there's a rivalry there. And like I said, I think Luka can take one or maybe, at most maybe. But the Suns team should win this. They would be the nightmare. I can't talk right now. But
yeah, I have the Clippers as their nightmare. Like I mentioned before, they have Kawhi and Paul George. You put those two on Luka. Now it's who shows up after that outside of Luka and Kyrie, who can score. We don't know who can score consistently. Kyrie, not only can Paul George and Kawhi Leonard guard Luka and Kyrie, but they can go down and both get you 35, 40 apiece. That's not even including the rest of their team. So that's why they're the nightmare matchup of the Dallas Mavericks.
The Minnesota Timberwolves, as we're at the 9th seed now in the Western Conference, the dream matchup for them is the Kings, just because the Kings are inexperienced, and like I said, they can have off games with a high-powered offense like the Kings.
Yeah, and I have the Nuggets here only because the Nuggets, they don't run up and down as much as the Kings, which is Rudy Gobert's weakness. He doesn't really like a lot of those smaller guys. He wouldn't be able to really stand a chance. So that's why I have the Nuggets here. Rudy Gobert can stay down low, guard Nikola Jokic, and we can see what happens after that.
My nightmare is the Nuggets, just because Nikola Jokic loves playing against Rudy Gobert, and whether if it's Cat or Rudy Gobert, Jokic is going to take over this series. Maybe he doesn't have 30 points per game, but he's going to get you 16, 10, and 10, and really command this series. It's probably going to be a sweep for the Nuggets.
We saw what my nightmare is actually the Sacramento Kings, because we saw what Jalen Brunson and Spencer Dinwiddie did to Rudy Gobert last year. I have no doubt in my mind that De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, and others will be able to do if not worse than or better than the Mavericks did last year. So nobody wants to see that happen again.
Absolutely. Hopefully the Timberwolves fall out. But the Oklahoma City Thunder, I have their dream matchup as the Grizzlies. The only argument here for me was that I believe the Thunder are 3-1 against the Grizzlies this year. I know Ja has sat one of those games, and Jaren Jackson wasn't there for one of them as well. But the Thunder, they're 3-1 against this Grizzlies team, and even though this Grizzlies team has been good throughout the years without Ja Morant, with them, the Thunder have still beat the Grizzlies when they've had Ja and Jaren Jackson this year. I don't know, that's really my only argument. They're a young team. Why not go against the Grizzlies?
Yeah, and for most of my teams down here at the bottom, I have the same two teams as the Dreams and Nightmares. The Nuggets are the Dream, only because, like I've said, we've seen the Nuggets in the playoffs a few times now. I actually think I trust this Sacramento Kings team a little bit more than the Denver Nuggets, only because that the Kings, they've had to grind out a lot of their wins this year. De'Aaron Fox, he leads the NBA in clutch points. I believe that'll be very, very useful in the playoffs. Even if you don't have the experience, it's the first round. So, that's where the Nuggets, they're the Dream.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Nuggets as a nightmare just because, I mean, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl is really going to be probably your matchup for Jokic in this series, if it's not J-Dub.
Barbecue chicken. Oh, I'm playing.
And the whole series, you just don't want to face Nikola Jokic.
That is true.
Moving over to the Lakers, they're a team that we made the exception for. We both are hoping they make the playoffs over the Jazz, or at least over the Timberwolves. But LeBron and them, they want to play the Kings. I've mentioned it before. High-powered offense. They can have off nights. The Lakers are an experienced team. And LeBron's hungry. His time clock is running out. If he wants to get a championship, it's got to be soon. And it's got to be this year. They got to go on a crazy run. And it can all start with a rise in the standings and then beating the Kings.
Yeah, and I have the Nuggets here yet again. I believe AD and Jared Vanderbilt will be able to take care of Jokic, or at least limit his effectiveness on the series. Then you're relying on Jamal Murray to become more of a scoring guard, even though he is already, but you're putting more pressure on him and Michael Porter Jr. We'd have to see. I believe that the Lakers have a lot, like you said, since the trade deadline, they've got a lot better, got a lot more role pieces. We've seen Austin Reeves and D'Lo each have their moment since LeBron's injury. I believe that'll be very useful if they play the Nuggets first round and they are able to limit Jokic's effectiveness on the Nuggets.
My nightmare for the Lakers was the Nuggets, because the Nuggets, this is probably the best Nuggets team that we've seen with this core. And I mean, Jokic wants a little bit of revenge against this Lakers team from the Western Conference semis a couple years ago. But I guess I have him as a nightmare here because what AD are we getting? What's the health of LeBron and AD? I think the Nuggets are a little bit more durable, and a lot of depth from the Nuggets can be worrisome for this Lakers team.
Yeah, I have the Sacramento Kings as a nightmare only because the Lakers always struggle against the Sacramento Kings, no matter if the Lakers are winning or if the Kings are losing. I believe Sacramento, the Lakers are an older team. They got a little bit younger at the deadline, but they still have a lot of older, like you have the oldest player in the league in LeBron James. Anthony Davis, he's only like 28, 29, but he plays like he's 35, 36. I believe that, if the Kings are able to just at least push the pace each and every game, they have a shot at beating the Lakers, just due to age.
Moving over to the Eastern Conference, quick look here at the 1 through 10. As you see, the Brooklyn Nets are on the brink of the play-in, while you got the Miami Heat on the come-up. Hopefully the Miami Heat can maybe sneak into the 6th seed there. But starting with the 1 seed, I had a video, and I'm going to keep mentioning this because I still believe it. I had a video where it's titled, What We've Learned 1 Month In. I said this was the best Bucks team of all time. And I believe that. I mean, this team won 18 straight games at one point. They're the 1 seed again. They look dominant. And their dream matchup here is the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls, I'll make fun of them a little bit later. But the Chicago Bulls, the Milwaukee Bucks have tortured them the last couple of years in the playoffs. And they're going to do it yet again.
Yeah, I agree with you. Everything you just said there, that's my reasoning as well. The Bulls just are not a playoff caliber team, even though they do have Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan.
Vooch has been playing better.
Yeah, and Vooch has been playing better. Pat Bev just had 14 straight the other night. Maybe he's an X factor. No, I'm playing, but it's just cheers to these NBA teams. The Bucks I believe that they're probably the best team in the league right now. That's just how good they are, it's almost to the point where it's like you can't even really think of a nightmare for the Bucks, but you just have to pick one just because of, of what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be hard to pick against them when we go to make our playoff predictions later on. But the Milwaukee Bucks, great team. I think their nightmare here is simply for the fact that for a team like Milwaukee, where you're going to have to play teams like Boston later on, or Philly later on, maybe even a Cavs team. And then, eventually a Suns team or a Warriors team, whoever comes out the West, you're going to have a lot of tough matchups in the playoff run. You want to get out of this first-round series quick. And a nightmare for them would be the Miami Heat, a team like the Miami Heat, who were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They're a great team, a great playoff team, I'll say that. And this Bucks team does not want to face the Heat first round because they can extend the series.
Yeah, and I know I have the same nightmare as you. But, when you hear Jimmy Butler does take it up a notch in the playoffs. He always does. That's kind of his MO. But I just feel like, Tyler Hero, he is Tyler Hero and Bam. Bam is Bam. But outside of that, I feel like this Heat team is actually probably the worst role players that they've had since before that bubble year. I just feel like this Heat team is different. They've been struggling all year to kind of find that like identity. Really, they pride themselves on defense, but they have Kevin Love starting. So I think last time the Bucks played the Heat, the Bucks swept them. The Heat didn't even stand a chance. I believe that's what happened again this time. I don't believe Jimmy Butler's heroics will be able to stop them from Chris Middleton, Giannis, and others. Brook Lopez, I think he's leading the DPOY race right now. So, the Miami Heat have the best chance of being out of these lower seeds of beating the Bucks, but there's almost no chance when you really look at it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about the West is open. You can make an argument for the Lakers to beat the Nuggets. You can make an argument for one of those other teams at the bottom to upset the Grizzlies or the Kings. You can't really do that in the East. It's really like who's playing to get swept by Boston, Philly, or Milwaukee.
Right.
But, I mean, moving over here to the Boston Celtics, they regained the number 2 seed last night. And for me, we would have to have some movement in the seeding. But give me the Brooklyn Nets to be their dream matchup. The Brooklyn Nets, they traded away Kevin Durant, Kyrie, James Harden 2 seasons ago. Unless Ben Simmons turns into prime Ben Simmons, where we saw his last year in Philly, there's nothing to worry about here for Boston. This is going to be a quick 4-0 sweep, just like they did last season.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the theme of this Eastern Conference is the Nets are going to be a lot of people's dream. Just because the Nets, if they started off this year with the roster they have, I believe that they're probably, a ninth seed at best, and that's at best. I believe they have a little bit of talent, but, compared to these top teams and the teams that have been in a dogfight for these playoff positions all year, I just don't think that they're good enough to sustain or to face teams like, Milwaukee, Boston, 76ers, Cleveland, or the Knicks. So
yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it now, and weirdly enough, I think the Nets will somehow make the playoffs.
Oh yeah,
because they do have a talented team, but at the same time, if it came down to it, let's say Miami moves up to the 6th seed, Brooklyn drops to the 7. I don't think Brooklyn beats the Atlanta Hawks in a one-game setting. I don't think they beat the Raptors, and weirdly enough, I might take the Bulls over the Nets just over star power. But hopefully this Nets team makes it because whoever one of these top seeds are going to get a cakewalk, quite literally, in the first round. But the Toronto Raptors are my nightmare matchup for this Boston Celtic team. The Raptors, I think, are the 9th seed. My only argument here is, the Raptors have been wishy-washy this year. I projected them to do a lot better in the second half of the season than they have been. But they have a lot of bodies. You can throw OG Anunoby. You can throw Pascal Siakam. You have Chris Boucher. They can match Boston, basically. I could say that. At least defensively. Offensively, that's going to be a question. But defensively, they can match Boston. And when you have guys like Fred VanVleet, who's very streaky, maybe he turns it on in the playoffs. What better time to actually play somewhat decent than in the playoffs? So this Toronto team, a lot of depth. Boston doesn't want to play them first round.
Yeah, and my nightmare matchup is the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks they have the Celtics number for, whatever the reason is. The Celtics, they always struggle against the Knicks. I think, the matchups there are it doesn't, on paper, it doesn't look like they would match up evenly, but they do. Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, the two-headed snake, two-headed snake for the New York Knicks. They somehow, they perform really good against Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I'm not saying that this series will be a 7-game series or anything, but I don't think that the Boston Celtics would like to play the Knicks in the first round due to, you could be getting a, Brooklyn Celtics series from last year where each game is decided by 4 points or less, and it's very physical. And, we saw the Celtics go to the finals after that last year, but, they don't have the same pieces. They have, a few different pieces, but, this Knicks team is, they're tough. They've been playing like it too.
Yeah, and they've been catching a lot of, they've been heating up on the way to the playoffs. But the Philadelphia 76ers, they lost yesterday and they dropped one in the standings. A crazy double overtime game where I think Derrick Jones Jr. Won the game for the Heat. Or was it the Heat, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But regardless, their
dream...
it
was the Bulls.
That's who it was, the Bulls. My apologies. But their dream matchup here is the Bulls. I mean, what better way to get some revenge than to sweep a team in the playoffs? The Bulls, they have DeMar DeRozan. They have Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams. But they don't have the star power, and they don't have the MVP in Joel Embiid. So the Sixers team, they're going to be hoping for the Chicago Bulls first round.
Yeah, and as it stands right now, the 76ers would be the luckiest team right in the East because they would be playing the Nets first round, and that would be an absolute sweep. Nick Claxton would be barbecue chicken compared to, for Joel Embiid. Once again, the Nets team, they have a lot of heart. They just don't have the talent enough to beat a team that's led by Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and James Harden. That's a dream. What else is there to say?
No, absolutely. And then the nightmare is the Heat. We both have them. I believe, if I can speak for you, I think it's just for the same reason. You don't want to play a team that can extend the series. This Heat team, sure, could they maybe upset the Sixers? Yeah, I mean, it's always a possibility, but at the end of the day, I think everybody in America, besides Heat fans, would pick the Sixers in the series. And the Sixers team, especially with a player like Joel Embiid, who doesn't have the greatest history of health, same with James Harden, you want to keep your stars healthy. You want to get out of the first round quick. Playing against the Heat's not going to do that.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I don't really think the Heat would stand a chance, but there is a small sliver of an upset potential right there. That's the only reason that they're the nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. And then we're going to move on to the hometown Cleveland Cavaliers. We're going to spend the next hour of the podcast on this. No, I'm just joking. But we both have the same teams here. The dream is the Brooklyn Nets. The nightmare is the New York Knicks. You can pick whichever one you want to talk about.
Yeah, I'll go with the, I feel like we touched on the Nets a lot. The Knicks, same reason I said for the Celtics. The Knicks I think they've beat the Cavs in the season series this year. I think there's a real possibility if the Cavs play the Knicks that the Cavs actually lose just because the Knicks have been playing so well. But the Cavs have been playing better recently. Evan Mobley is exerting himself as one of the league's top best young players. But it'll be a really interesting series. It'll probably be one of the most entertaining first-round series, a potential 7-game series. I'd be scared for the Cavs if they have to play the Knicks.
Yeah, this is a great matchup. In a way, I hope the Knicks fall to the 6th seed.
Yeah.
Because I would rather play the Heat or the Nets first round and not this Knicks team because, I mean, they could probably throw Jalen Brunson on Garland. And if not, you have R.J. Barrett. Because we're saving Josh Hart or R.J. Barrett for a guy like Donovan Mitchell. And sure, they're not going to stop Donovan Mitchell, who is also on that top 10 list for playoff scoring.
Yeah.
Or at least by game. But I don't want to play the Knicks first round.
Yeah.
Dream-wise, though, the Nets. The Nets, they don't have the star players anymore. They have a great team of role players. They just don't have that guy that could take them over the edge. And Donovan Mitchell would have a field day in this series.
Yeah, he would.
Not that he wouldn't be guarded by all defensive first team Mikal Bridges, but even let's say that Donovan Mitchell is having an off series, you still have Darius Garland, you still have Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. We still have a great core of guys.
Karis LeVert's been playing really good recently.
LeVert, who can turn it on against his old team, the Brooklyn Nets. We have a great core of guys that can turn us up and get us over that hump because if Mikal Bridges is not on Donovan Mitchell, it's over. But if he is, I think we still have the better core.
Yep.
Moving over to the New York Knicks, as we talked about, my dream matchup for them is the Cavs, just because they have so much defensive versatility. And the Cavs, let's just say Donovan Mitchell doesn't have it going, the Knicks are going to be in a pretty good spot because they do have Julius Randle, who's playing at arguably an all-NBA level this year. Jalen Brunson should have been an all-star. The Knicks, defensively, they're there. And if they play the Cavs, the games are going to be like 99-90 because these are two top 3 defensive teams in the league. But why do you have the Cavs as their dream matchup?
Yeah, everything you just said is pretty much the reason why. Like I said, I look a lot at this. I mean, even if it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, the season series matchups, they give a little bit of that taste of what you could expect. And, like you just said, it took Julius Randle hitting like 8 threes the last time the Cavs played the Knicks for them to win. But with that being said, they do have a little bit more defensive versatility than the Cavs do for them. Evan Mobley he's 3rd in the Defensive Player of the Year voting right now, but he does get bullied by Julius Randle just because he isn't as strong as him. Even though he's a really good shot blocker. Julius Randle, he's athletic and he's playing football, basketball, guys, and I don't really know who our perimeter defender other than Isaac Okoro would be to guard Jalen Brunson, and it seems like Isaac Okoro has the label perimeter defender while giving up 25. So that's the dream matchup right there.
My nightmare for them is the Philadelphia 76ers. Just because they have Jalen McDaniels, a guy that's lengthy, and sure, he's like Evan Mobley, where he doesn't have the strength of a Julius Randle, but he's lengthy. He can be able to pester Julius Randle for an entire 7-game series. And then you also have an MVP candidate, arguably most people's MVP, Joel Embiid, not to mention James Harden, who's always playing great in the Garden. It's going to be a nightmare for them because you got to face two great players, as well as the some of the great depth pieces in Philly. Also, shout out to Tobias Harris, one of my favorite players in the league. Don't know why. I just like those big, chunky mid-range shooters, but just like Melo. But Tobias Harris, he's been playing a lot better this season. He's going to have a big market for this offseason.
Yeah, and I have the Boston Celtics as a nightmare matchup. JB and JT, they're playing the best basketball of their career this year. This year they've really taken a step forward in their partnership. They do have Malcolm Brogdon, Robert Williams, Time Lord, Marcus Smart. They do have defenders to put on, either or Julius Randle or Jalen Brunson. Julius Randle, he's having a great season, but he's still inconsistent. He can go get you 57 one game, and he'll get you 13 2 games in a row on really bad shooting and with bad turnovers. I believe that the Celtics, their main goal is to say, hey, we didn't make the finals by accident last year. We're trying to get right back there, and that's a dangerous team to face in the first round.
My next team is, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to clown on this franchise, but with everything that's gone on this season, this is really their best hope. For the Brooklyn Nets, I have their dream to just make the playoffs. Strictly just because they got rid of Kevin Durant, got rid of Kyrie. They had a lot of drama with bringing in Ben Simmons. They traded James Harden last season. Just 2 years ago, this team was looked at to be the next dynasty. And now they're just hoping to make the playoffs. And I think that would be good for their franchise. It would be good for Jacques Vaughn. We got to show him a lot of love if they do make it. But they're the 6th seed right now. They're one game away, I think, from falling into the play-in. And if they do that, I'm not sure what their odds look like. But right now, I think their dream is just to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and my dream for them is the Cleveland Cavaliers. If I can have two nightmares, I'd have the Cavs and Philly. But the Cavs, there really isn't a lot of positive in playing them, other than you could put Mikal Bridges on Donovan Mitchell and see what else happens. But that's a lot better than the alternative of watching Joel Embiid have 55 and 25 on your team for 4 straight games. So.
Yeah, and our nightmare, we both had Philly. Just same reason you said. Still New York. James Harden and Joel Embiid are going to turn up. They're going to play their best basketball. Tyrese Maxey's probably going to have the best series for the Sixers in this series in a hypothetical situation. But Joel Embiid, the Nets don't really have anybody to stop him. And just like Jared Allen, the big shot blocking big, Nick Claxton's going to be in foul trouble just like Jared Allen is all the time. Joel Embiid's going to sweep this Nets team.
Yeah.
But moving over to the Miami Heat, a team we talked about earlier as possible nightmare matchup for a lot of teams. They have the veterans. They have the depth. They have championship DNA in team captain there in Kyle Lowry. But once this team gets healthy, they're going to have a good starting 5. But as you mentioned, and as it's rumored, or not rumored, but just the thought is thrown out there that this Heat team has the worst 4 through 15 in the league, arguably, and that's including the bottom feeders. So this Heat team, they're built for the playoffs. I have their dream matchup as the Sixers, strictly just because they have Bam, they have Omer Yurtseven, they have bigger bodies that they can throw on Embiid. We know that the Heat turn up in the playoffs, and if James Harden has an off series, it could be very interesting to play a team like the Sixers, who have a big list of health concerns.
Yeah, and I have the Celtics as the dream, which is actually kind of crazy considering they just went 7 games in Eastern Conference Finals last year. But like you just said, I don't believe that this Heat team they don't have enough when the bench comes in. While the Celtics got a better bench in the offseason, even though Danilo Gallinari tore his ACL before the season, they still have Malcolm Brogdon. They still have really solid guys coming off of that bench. Like I said, JT and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they both took a step on offensively and defensively this year. I believe that that's dangerous for a Heat team that they haven't found out an identity so far. Jimmy Butler, he's not satisfied with their play, and the playoffs are about to start. So, for that reason, I have them as a dream, but that's only because it's a better alternative than them playing the Bucks. So.
Right, and I'm just gonna get this out the way now. The nightmares from here on out, the last 4 teams are all the Milwaukee Bucks, because these teams are play-in teams. If they make it, they're going to face either the Sixers, the Celtics, or the Bucks. they're going to get swept either way. So for the remainder of these teams, we're going to have the Milwaukee Bucks, because if these teams make it, they're going to have to play the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
But moving over to the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks, we both have the same stuff here. I'll give you the floor again. Do you want to talk about their dream or their nightmare?
I'll give you their dream, only because we're talking a lot about the Bucks, but their dream would be to play Philly. They're going to get swept by Philly. I don't think it really matters. I know we saw these two teams play 2 years ago, but these aren't the same two teams. The DeJounte Murray, Trae Young experiment hasn't worked out so well. They've played slightly better under Quinn Snyder, but they still aren't a feared team. I think a lot of teams look at this Atlanta Hawks team like, hey, they might score a lot of points one game. They might be really, really bad the next game, shooting wise. And, with a team like Philly, they know their plan. Pick and roll with James Harden. James Harden is going to get you 10 to 15 assists. Joel Embiid is going to get you 30 to 35 points. And that's just average. So, yeah.
I mean, on paper, it doesn't make sense why this Hawks team is not great. Because, for a matchup like the Sixers, I will say that I had them here because DeJounte Murray's an all-NBA defender. And he's going to be first team or second team probably for the next decade, right? Or at least he's going to be in the running for it. When you throw a guy like DeJounte Murray on Joel Embiid, or on, not Joel Embiid, but on James Harden, right? So James Harden's their lead guard. If you can put a guy like DeJounte on James Harden, and then you can throw Clint Capella or double O, or have, John Collins shade over and double team Joel Embiid the whole game, they could be very interesting to see this Hawks team maybe pull off an upset, as Tyrese Maxey and Trae Young are just going to score and not play defense on each other the whole entire series in this hypothetical situation. And then the Bucks, they have Giannis. They have arguably the most complete team in the league. They're going to throw Jrue Holiday on Trae Young. Trae Young's going to be a 0. Chris Middleton's going to probably be on DeJounte Murray. And Giannis is just going to free roam. He's just going to roam around, and this Bucks team is going to probably take a nap. The league's gonna stop this series at game 2.
Yeah, they won't even televise the game. It'll just be second round. The Bucks are playing.
We might have to get a newspaper to find out what happened. But the Toronto Raptors, their dream matchup here is the Boston Celtics, and their nightmare is the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks, we just mentioned it. I think this is the best Bucks team of all time. I think they have the best player in the world in Giannis Antetokounmpo, a guy who's going to be third in the MVP race this year. And it's better. It's the worst alternative. It doesn't matter for this Raptors team whether they're playing Boston, Philly, or Milwaukee. I just think that their worst possible matchup is the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, and like you said, their worst possible matchup is the Bucks. A slightly better matchup would be the Celtics. Like you said earlier, they have, the Raptors have a few bodies they can throw at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but, the offense is where they're lacking. So, it'd just be a wait-and-see type of game for them on the offensive side.
We're going to close off here with a team that had a double overtime win yesterday, courtesy of Derrick Jones Jr., but Chi-Town Chicago Bulls, 34-37. They're the number 10 seed right now. And a team that we thought was just going to be bottom feeders, they've actually turned it on the second half of this season. And, they're going to be the 10 seed here. My dream for them, just like the Brooklyn Nets, is to make the playoffs. Right now, I don't think it matters if they play the top 4 seeds. Or I might even go as far to say as I think the Knicks would sweep this Bulls team in the playoffs. So I think it's when that is your outlook, when you're saying, okay, the top 6 seeds in the East would sweep us, at that point you're just happy to be there. and they have DeMar, they have Zach, they have Vucevic. They want to compete. They just want to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I have I would have had the just make the playoffs, but I think this team had a lot higher expectations, especially after the season they had last year, where they kind of fumbled a bit down the line last year after Lonzo got hurt. And I don't think they were expecting to be in the lottery. I don't think they want to be in the lottery, for the draft pick this year, because that would just mean that this season was a complete failure for them. So they're probably thinking, hey, if we can get to the playoffs, anything can happen. It can't. But their dream matchup would be Philly. It's you see Joel Embiid put 40 and 20 on you, but that's better than watching Giannis put 55 and 25 on you. It
might be to the point where you just kind of have the strategy of Joel Embiid can do whatever he wants, will shut down everybody else, and Joel Embiid is going to get you 40 to 50 in a game plan like that. But if you shut down everybody else, it could be very interesting. But that's going to do it for today's show. I do want to say this. I want to re-bring this. I want to re-put it out there. if I can talk correctly. But we do have some TikTok content. Right now, after this show, we're going to go record some TikTok content. We're going to post it on our TikTok. The TikTok account name is going to be on your screen now. And, go follow that. Go follow the Instagram on YouTube. On this page, we started YouTube Shorts as well as the TikTok account. So go support us over there, as you guys are killing it already. You guys are killing it already. But until Thursday, Thursday, you want to give us a preview of what we're doing. And we got some exciting stuff for you guys coming up as draft season's right around the corner.
Yeah, we're going to try and predict the next Jamarcus Russell of the NFL. No, I'm playing. We're going to go through and we're going to, give our opinions on who each team. We're going to do a mock draft for the NFL draft for the first round at least. See what we have the top prospects of this draft going in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, I love the draft, and I do watch the combine every single season, but I've never been to the point where I've done second round picks. Yeah. So I think no matter what, we'll bring you guys 2 mock draft episodes in this draft season. We'll do one Thursday, and we'll do one the day of, or the day right before the draft, I think. So be on the lookout for that. But until Thursday, be on the lookout for TikTok, and stay happy, stay healthy. Let us know down below who your dream nightmare scenarios are. We'll see you Thursday.